Alright, what's poppin', people? Let's get into it.
You ain't so tough with that bad boy tuck. I'ma get it how I'm living, I'ma walk the walk. Outline my lines, I rap through thought.
Hey friends, welcome back to the football channel. It's a football channel. Welcome back to Football Therapy, the Chelsea YouTube channel. Look, loads of sensationalism going around the headlines at the moment. Of course, the Chelsea Supporters Trust issued a letter to the Chelsea ownership warning of irreversible toxicity coming from the right place, I believe. And of course, we had people like Simon Jordan on TalkSport, which I reacted to here on the channel, saying that many Chelsea fans who are upset with what's happening at the club, it's ridiculous. He made his case for that. Of course, I believe the truth lies somewhere in between, as always is the case with these things. In today's video, I want to speak about the potential of Chelsea cultivating a Glazers Out atmosphere and culture at the club and what that might mean long term. I've long nailed my colours to the mast in terms of what I'd like for my football club, Chelsea. We all love Chelsea. We are all Chelsea fans. Well, some of you won't be Chelsea fans watching that, and you're most welcome as well. But it's the international break. Sometimes it's good, isn't it? It gives you some time away from club football to think about the big picture. Take a breath, take a pause, and reflect. And watch some turgid international football. We're going to get into it today. I want to thank you, as always, for joining me. If you want to support the content, it's super simple, man. Simply just drop I'll say it's a tap of a thumb more than the click of a finger these days to drop a like, but dropping a like is very, very helpful. If you're yet to subscribe, I recommend you do, because I waft you towards the subscription button. Hit the bell if you decide to subscribe, so you get notified when I upload, and you can enjoy, hopefully, news that I deliver, and hopefully my commentary and insight. Before we talk about this idea or this potential Glazers Out culture coming into Chelsea, let me reiterate my position on the Chelsea owners. I am quite, how would I put it? I'd say philosophical. The thing is, right, our previous owner is gone, and that's not coming back. So I'm going to employ some stoicism here. Be quite stoic. It's not even that to say it's that stoic. Look, Abramovich is gone. He's not coming back. Right, so someone else needs to own Chelsea, okay? Someone needs to own Chelsea. And a few parties approached Rain Group to purchase Chelsea. There was, of course, the consortium that would become BlueCo, that is our current owners. I think probably second in line was the Ricketts family. There was Steve Pagliuca, the guys from Crystal Palace. There was Saudi Media Group, but apparently that was never really a serious bid in terms of financial structure. And that was kind of it for the main movers, and across all social media, and these are people saying owners out, all this kind of stuff, I would not be surprised at all to see maybe, I don't know, the vast majority asked for Todd Boehly and Clearlake. Everyone wanted these potential owners over the alternatives. That was seemingly the vibe. So they all wanted what's best for the club, and they wanted us to do well. Now, I've got to reiterate my position, because Chelsea, I think, right, personally, I think Chelsea was having negative trends for a long, long time. People from The Athletic reiterate this. Lots of serious journalists talk about the times under Roman, how we'd performed domestically, how, of course, under Roman Abramovich, we would not be sustainable. It wasn't a sustainable model anyway, but now with PSR rules, we'd be in even more trouble. But again, that's going back to Roman Abramovich. It's pointless looking back. We have to look at Chelsea as a big team that generates revenue, but also demands success. We as fans should not get rid of that. Now, the new owners come in, and they say they want success. They say they want to win, but talk is cheap, right? Now, I'm going to maintain the same points I've always had, that they're doing stuff that I like. Pump the brakes there, guys, before you recoil at that words. Some stuff, okay? And again, this is not me coming out with it now. And by the way, right, I did whinge about this on Instagram. Like, oh, this guy's defending the owners. He's probably getting paid by them. By the way, if they want to pay me, they are most welcome to, because I give them less heat than others. Certainly I haven't called for them out because I think that's a pointless endeavor, which we'll get into. But I'm not 100% happy with them, firstly. I'm a bit more just methodical about where we are and what we can do. And do you know what I mean? A little bit more philosophical about it. But yeah, they haven't been perfect. But I do like certain things, right? I like the incentive-based contracts. I've been calling for that for years at Chelsea. I always used Harry Kane as an example of a guy who earns a lot of money on an incentive-based contract. We used to give players massive wages for, just being names. And again, there'd be no value because they'd be older players. So the younger players, incentive-based contracts, I think is good. On reflection, the long contracts with amortization, though that comes with risks, you'd have to say they did something right there, because both UEFA and the Premier League have now banned that, because they were like, oh, stop doing that. So essentially, it was deemed a beneficial loophole that was exploited by Chelsea, Boehly and Clearlake. So I never called for that, because I don't think about accounting in football, but I guess that's a good thing. And something else that I've always been calling for is an infrastructure, sporting directors, appropriate hires. And Chelsea, I'm not going to go for it, it's boring. But top to bottom, we've made loads and loads and loads of endless footballing hires. It's just the thing, you need it now, modern football. So great, tick, 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 tick. What don't I like? Well, I didn't like them selling Mason Mount. I wanted us to somehow find a way to keep Mason Mount. Time has helped with that for a couple of reasons, because Mount's injured. Cole Palmer's been sensational. We've got players like Carney Chukwuemeka that looks excellent, much lower wages, possibly much higher productivity output offensively. I was hurt emotionally in terms of the connection with the club, but Mason Mount, he's not a Chelsea fan, he's a Portsmouth fan. There was the video of him and his dad at, Old Trafford going, we've done it, we've made it, we're home. So I was like, okay, go away, I'm done, with that. I really did like Kai Havertz. I wasn't one of these players. I wasn't a Kai Havertz stan, but I thought he was quite a uniquely interesting footballer. But he was on massive wages, and when we sold him for £68 million, I thought, all right, good. So I'm trying to think of things I didn't like. Obviously, the first transfer window was a huge mistake. Koulibaly, Sterling, Aubameyang. But Sterling and Aubameyang were Tuchel signings. They were signed for Tuchel. But in hindsight, you look back, it was a mess. And obviously giving Sterling 325k a week. But that was to keep Tuchel happy. Something happened there to sack Tuchel, apparently. We're not going to go down that again. But I kind of was okay with the hiring of Potter. I think it was refreshing, but it's a massive mistake in hindsight. And it was an expensive one. And I think they did too much too quickly. I understand why, for legal reasons, they needed to get rid of everyone Abramovich affiliated, and we're finding that out more and more with legal reasons. But they did too much too quickly. So, and stuff like going into the dressing room with Tuchel was there, learning these cultural lessons. But I guess that could have always happened. That might have always had to happen. A Ricketts family member might have just bought Chelsea, and then they're like, hey, let's go in the locker room. We just don't know. Do you know what I mean? So the mistakes were made. But in terms of intentions, what they want to do, I generally aligned with them, largely. Now I've got a good authority. Not everyone's a likable character in the new ownership, or the new structure, should I say, rather than ownership. And maybe that needs to change eventually. But in terms of intentions, great. But we're mid-table. We're mid-table last season. We're mid-table now. I know we've scored 10 goals already more in the league than we did last season, and we've had much more memorable results. Last season was terrible top to bottom. We scored a goal a game. We're way above that. We'll probably end the season with possibly 30 more goals scored than last season, just in the Premier League, which is massive. We've had big results, of course, undefeated against the treble winner City. We had good draws against Arsenal and Liverpool. We got to a cup final. We could get to another. We got to stuff like that. There's memorable results. Of course, we've been battered and had terrible results as well. And the league table doesn't lie, right? So it's really, really disappointing. And I don't think anyone wants us to be here. Do you know what I mean? But I don't want to just say they've been perfect, because they haven't been. Because you can't be mid-table. Even if, like I say recently, that term front-loading, even if they front-loaded the financial investment and they front-loaded the growing pains to the beginning of their tenure as Chelsea owners, you're still Chelsea, you've still got a lot of talent, it's not good enough. So, I'm not criticising anyone who is upset with these Chelsea owners. I've respectfully given my position and why, although disappointed with how things are going, how I like the ideas. And look, if Chelsea fade off into mid-table mediocrity, I will be very upset, of course, but I don't know. There doesn't seem like, apart from maybe getting a couple more senior players in the first team, which is like relatively, it's not trivial, but you see what I mean? Like, in terms of their grand scheme, their ideas of Chelsea, optimizing revenue, bringing in young talent and, making it incentive based, all that kind of stuff, and making footballing directors. I've always wanted all of that, so I can't change my position now. And knowing that the Roman Abramovich model is no longer sustainable, I can't be angry at that. But I can totally understand. That's me personally. I'm not saying I'm happy with the owners. I'm not saying they've been perfect. In fact, they've got a lot wrong, and we're underperforming as a institution, top to bottom. That's how I feel. But at the same time, because of the underperformance, I've got absolutely no issues with people being very, very upset and angry with them, and that is their right as a football fan. You can be Poch out, you can be Todd Boehly out, Clearlake out, BlueCo out, let's call it, if you want, because you're a paying football fan, and that is your right. I think as long as you just respect everyone else's opinions and not be a knobhead, basically, that's the most important thing. But I did want to talk about where we go from here, because what I want us to talk about is like the Glazers Out culture. I said it before on the socials and briefly on here, that to the point where when United score a goal, Manchester United, they would shout, "We want Glazers out," because they felt like that's the best moment. And it is genuinely to get their message across. But how does that help development of players and the team and confidence? And when you are a team entirely made of these young, impressionable, vulnerable players. For example, if we were like, "We want BlueCo out," we want BlueCo out whenever Mudryk scored a goal or Noni Madueke scored a goal, or if David Washington or Whisper, the striker, if they score their first goal for Chelsea, if the fans start singing about wanting the owners out. This is just an example how that could be a toxic thing that hinders development of our young players, our Chelsea players. I think more importantly as well, it's just pointless negativity, because Chelsea was seized as an asset and sold by Rain Group to not the highest bidder, but the most appropriate owner, which actually puts us in a very, very privileged position. Whereas, other clubs, for example, like Newcastle, was just sold for as much as possible to Saudis. It's a state-backed, it's a state ownership project, which believe you might have your own opinion about that, but that's not something that I want for my club, Chelsea. So Chelsea was sold. It's done now. It's at the very, very beginning of a tenure. To start asking for them to leave, it's just not going to happen. Nothing can be achieved from creating a campaign against the owners right now, except hindering development of young players, making the atmosphere unpleasant for people who visit. It makes you less likely to win games. Because, again, I respect the opinion, and I'm just asserting my opinion here, but let's just say, someone doesn't want the Chelsea owners, right? And they create some form of campaign to tell the owners that they don't want them here. We don't want you here at Chelsea, okay? And for some reason, let's just say for some reason the Chelsea owners, okay, this guy doesn't want us here. You know what? Fan X doesn't want us here. And you know what? This isn't as easy as we thought it would be. Let's leave. Okay. This guy, there's a section of the fan base that don't like us. They want us to leave. And maybe this gig was harder than we thought it would be. By the way, this would never happen in real life, but let's just say it for the sake of an argument here. They've just invested, this consortium, £1 billion on assets on top of a roughly 2.5 billion initial investment of the club. So let's just say 3.5 billion they've just put in to Chelsea. Which of course is tied up in obligations to redevelop Stamford Bridge, women's team development, all kinds of stuff. So £3.5 billion they've just put in, but they've decided, actually, we're going to sell it because there's some unhappy fans here, right? Who do they sell to? How do they sell it? They make a gargantuan loss, firstly, because they've bought Chelsea with the idea of seeing an investment like after a decade, or they're paying dividends properly. The new model of Chelsea that they've redeveloped in 10 years' time. So they throw that all away. They just want as much money back as they can because they don't want to do it anymore. So they make a massive loss, firstly. How much do they sell Chelsea for with the assets? Maybe they just agree to take a 500 million loss. Maybe they somehow sell Chelsea with all the same obligations for 3 billion with the new players. I mean, that probably wouldn't happen, but let's just say. So they make $500 million loss. Who's going to come in and buy Chelsea and alleviate and solve what what angry people deem is the issue? The next in line was probably the Ricket. And firstly, it wouldn't be delegated by Rain Group anymore. It wouldn't be delegated by Rain Group anymore because it would just be Todd and Clearlake. And to be honest, I actually think there's something written into the contract where they can't sell Chelsea for X amount of time. You'll have to forgive me, you'll have to check that. I seem to remember someone, this may be wrong and it's worth checking, but I seem to remember somewhere in the contract with Rain is they have to be custodians of Chelsea for X amount of time, as in you're not coming in to just flip us to Qatar. Do you know what I mean? I think there's something in the contract you buy Chelsea for 2.5 because you seem like intelligent sports business people who run sports franchises in America, and you understand FFP and all this kind of stuff, and you're gonna build a board of Barbara Sharon and Finkelstein and whatever. You seem good. Haha, got ya. As soon as you've signed it, they just hand it over to Qatar for an extra 500 million profit. I think there's something in the contract to prevent that, so they can't flip Chelsea. Essentially, what I'm getting at here is nothing can be done. Certainly for the moment as well. What would it take for the Chelsea owners to go, actually, we're going to sell Chelsea now? I think it would take years of the Glazers Out. How long has Glazers Out been going on for? A decade? And has that done any more good than bad? I think it's done more bad than good. I mean, so Ineos is in there. By the way, Jim Ratcliffe was going to buy Chelsea, but he'd much rather buy United because he's a fan. He tried to buy half-assed buy Chelsea towards the end, didn't he? And he's doing all the stuff, he's bringing in footballing structure and doing all the stuff that our current owners are doing. Look, man, let's bring it on home here. I'm not happy. Above all, my desire to have an infrastructure, to have these type of contracts, and young players that can develop. And another thing as well, that Real Madrid team that won the Champions League 3 years in a row is because they just knew each other. They'd played with each other for so long, and if you could have a young team that just play with each other for years and years and years and years, that could be really, really useful. I like all of it. Do you know what I mean? But I just want Chelsea to win football matches. I'm the same as you. That's whether there's always a divide in fan bases for favoured players or opinion on infrastructure, individuals in the club, or indeed in this instance owners. But everyone needs to just remember we all ultimately want the same thing, and that's for Chelsea to win. Anyway, hopefully my musings you found interesting or entertaining. Please let me know in the comments. Thank you for joining me. If you want to show your support, just drop a like. I'll thank you for subscribing and hope to see you back here very soon. Peace.